Hey guys, what's going on? Ken Rayder here for Rayder Sports. How are we doing tonight? So, usually I don't talk about college football a lot. I don't really talk about anything a lot as much as I would like to. I would love to just spend my life here making videos, talking about sports and politics and whatever else. But unfortunately, bills got to be paid and shit has to be done. So, I can't always do what I want to do. It's life. But anyway, I don't do a lot of college football, and that's also half due to the fact that I have a lot of respect for college football lifer who's on YouTube. And Dustin, he does a great job. Really, he goes much more in depth than I would ever want to, and he's actually a pretty cool guy. So, I've spent a lot of time I study the polls very, very closely though. And so far, I've thought that the pollsters have done a pretty good job. I mean, a couple things here and there, like why was it when BYU and California were both ranked? Why was BYU ranked higher than California after California beat them? But, a couple minor things like that I figured, the polls will work itself out. It's BYU and California. Sooner or later, both of them will fall, and they did on the same week. So, little things like that really don't matter in the long run anyway. But there really hasn't been much for them to do in hindsight, because other than a couple major upsets like Virginia Tech losing Old Dominion, obviously you just drop Virginia Tech like a rock. Same thing, Wisconsin beats BYU, you just drop Wisconsin like a rock. So there hasn't really been much work for them to do, because it's been the all factor just hasn't been there until this week. We had 8 teams drop in the top 25 from last week's poll, and when I was looking at these polls, I realized there's some biases that we don't talk about as college football fans. I mean, we talk about the Big Ten bias, we talk about the East Coast bias, we talk about the fact that people on the East Coast don't watch West Coast teams because, if West Coast teams want to play under the lights, their games start at like 10:30, and here on the East Coast, that's East Coast time, that would be 10:30. And so the games don't end till 2, so really people on the East Coast don't really watch it, except for me, because I'm always up at that time. So we got the, quote, East Coast bias. Then we got the Big Ten bias, in which the Big Ten teams, are looked at as popular and always powerful, and they always kind of get a nod one way or the other, preferential treatment towards the Big Ten. The same thing with the SEC. The SEC is always so, quote, dominant, so they claim that there's an SEC bias there. But the one bias everybody gets away with, nobody talks about, nobody seems to care about, is the fact that there is a bias I'm going to dub the traditional program bias. And I noticed it in the week 6 poll right here. And college football lifer, he even said, quote, Texas is back. Well, I have a problem with that, with the fact that, okay, Texas was ranked 19. Oklahoma was ranked, 7? When Texas beat Oklahoma. So yes, of course, they'll go up. So yes, Texas will go up, Oklahoma will go down. Well, Texas jumped all the way up to 9. I have no problem with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, West Virginia. No problem with that at all. Notre Dame deserves to be higher than West Virginia due to the body of work. Clemson, obviously they've been pretty dominant. I'm actually proud of the polls for not dropping Clemson after Kelly Bryant used the senior transfer rule, and after Trevor Lawrence got injured in the Syracuse game. So I was expecting a full-blown panic, because I've seen it happen where if somebody gets injured or something like this happens, where a team goes through a tumultuous week but still wins, usually they drop them down a few spots, and I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm glad that they showed discernment and realized that this is a good Clemson team regardless of who's their quarterback. So, getting to my point with this bias thing. Okay, we have Bama 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Clemson 4, Notre Dame 5, West Virginia 6. Now we got one loss Washington. Okay, they lost a tough, very physical game to Auburn. Penn State, okay, they lost by 1 point to number 3 Ohio State. I'm fine with them. But Texas, and then 10 TCU. 9 Texas, 10 TCU. Now here's where the bias comes in. Texas's loss has come to Maryland. A Maryland team who lost to Temple. Let's get this straight. A Maryland team who lost to Temple is looked upon, all is forgiven because Texas beat Ohio State and Texas beat USC. Let's just say it factually like that. All is forgiven because you beat a 2-loss USC team and an Oklahoma's team who didn't look great against Army. Army gave them the blueprint to beat gave Texas the blueprint to beat Oklahoma. Okay, if you keep third downs manageable, the Oklahoma defense doesn't get off the field, and you can score a crap ton of points on them. You can keep that offense on the sidelines, jump out to a 21-point lead, blow the 21-point lead in Texas's case, and still end up with a victory at the end when they kick a field goal with 9 seconds left. Another thing I noticed in the polls is that head-to-head matchups do not matter. Okay, head-to-head matchups do not matter in the polls because they have LSU at 13, Florida at 14. Wait a damn second. Didn't Florida just beat LSU this week? Hello, let's figure this out. Shouldn't those two be flipped? Of course they should. And then we got Kentucky over here at 18. Kentucky taking a complete bath and getting knocked down 5 spots for losing in overtime to Texas A&M, whose only losses have come to Clemson and to who was the other one A&M lost? Oh, Bama. So you lose to the 4th ranked team and the 1st ranked team, and you're behind 2-loss Auburn. You're behind, and Texas A&M on their cases behind Auburn. They're behind. Well, that's really all I can make for Auburn, but Kentucky here drops 5 spots by losing in overtime after beating and have already beaten Florida. They really fell down 5 frickin' spots when they've already beaten Florida. Why did they have to go so far down? I don't know. I'm just saying because Kentucky football is not Kentucky basketball. It's not a traditional power. And what you're seeing up here is a more traditional powered bias. You have Michigan at 12, Oklahoma at 11, Texas at 9, Penn State 8, Notre Dame 5, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Bama. The top 5 of those, meritocracy. I'll give that to you. Penn State, they didn't look great against Appalachian State, but, I'll give them the nod because they only lost by 1 point to Ohio State, which was the stupidest 4th and 5 call I've ever seen. Why the hell do you run the ball with a guy who only has 286 yards? I mean, with the guy who only has 43 yards, instead of using the guy who is passing the ball at a 286-yard, 2-touchdown clip. I don't know. In my opinion, you throw the ball in that case, but again, I digress. But what we see here is Kentucky was jumped by Oregon, Miami, Wisconsin, Florida, who they beat, and LSU, who Florida just beat. So I think, really, on October 23rd, none of this matters anyway, because once the college football playoff committee gets their grubby little mitts on it, the AP goes bye-bye anyway. So guys, we're at the 10-minute mark. I didn't expect this video to be this long, but thank you. But if you reached this far, thank you for watching, guys. I'm Ken Rayder signing out. Let me know about how you feel about the biases in college football. Let me know what you think that this poll should look like. What do you think the playoff committee is going to be looking at? And until next time, guys, I'm Ken Rayder signing out.